Okay, so an organism is any living thing. First thing you need to do is just make a quick correction on your slide where it says floaters, swimmers, or bottom dwellers. Change floaters to say drifters.
Why?
Because it makes more sense. If I described something as floating, where in the water are they probably found? Right, exactly, on the top. And these things might be somewhat deep and or at least not exactly on the surface. Category of the living things would be plankton. Well, are those going to be the drifters, the swimmers, the floaters if they are described as the things that drift along in the current and are very small? Anyone want to help Luke out here? Yeah, good. So these are the drifters. There's two types. There's phytoplankton and zooplankton. If you want to see pictures of these, just scroll down to the next picture in your notes, and there's photographs of all these things. But phytoplankton can do something particularly special. If I told you that they're green, what is it that they can do? There it is. Good. Photosynthesis. Okay, then the next one is the zooplankton. Zooplankton, by the way, it's pronounced zooplankton, but it looks like zoo. Well, this can help you remember what they are. When you go to the zoo, what are you hoping to see? Sorry, what?
Plankton.
Okay, sure. That's usually not the case, though. Yep, plankton, koala bears, and all these kinds of things are types of animals. Or organisms was technically a correct answer, but yes. So they're small animals and or larvae. They're usually not bugs exactly, but they could be classified as bugs. Some of the larvae in the oceans could be classified as bugs. But these larvae are usually the larval stages of other things like fish or maybe some crustaceans. I'm not actually sure about the life cycle of crustacean, though. All right, the nekton are the swimmers. Now, a lot of opportunity for participation points here. Well, they can, so I'm putting it on the list. Seahorse. Just put any few examples of what you guys just said.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the bacteria in the water.
Bacteria in the water? Yeah, the bacteria in the water can have some movement of its own. Well, actually, not really the bacteria. But some of the plankton can have little appendages that move and wiggle that help them capture food. But they can't move themselves from one place to another. Like, oh, I want to go left, and so now I'm going to turn to the left and swim that way. Now, they can't do that, but they can kind of flap around where they are, if that makes sense. But bacteria themselves, I hope I'm not wrong in saying this, but bacteria themselves anywhere in the world don't have the ability to independently move. They just get carried along by something, like wind, water, animals, whatever. Like I'm carrying some bacteria right now. All of you are. We have bacteria in our digestive tract, and I'm moving around the room, so in a way, bacteria is moving, but it's because of me, not them. Benthos are the organisms that live on the bottom. What examples of that can you think of? That's something that stays on the bottom all the time. Stingray can swim independently. They are on the bottom often, but they can swim independently, so those are nekton. Okay, she said starfish. Think about this for a second, guys. Starfish are not fish at all, so they have a different name. Does anyone know what they are? Yeah, good, Emily. Sea star. Well, maybe. Okay, so sea stars, clams, crabs, anemone. I think if we go to the next that I have in there, there's, yeah, like here's the plankton, here and here. Then, oh, actually, how about you guys call this out? The next one is a squid. Is that plankton, nekton, or benthos? Well, just say it loud enough. Nekton. There it is, nekton. How about this great white shark? Looks like Bruce. Definitely nectin. Dolphins. Good, nectin. Here is a kelp forest.
Benthos.
Benthos. Sea star.
Benthos.
And the sea star is sitting on some coral.
Benthos.
Anemone.
Benthos.
Anemone. Don't hurt yourself, kid. All right, and the crab. Benthos. Good. Okay. Productivity is the amount of food produced by organisms. I'm assuming you guys know. Photosynthesis is the process of using what to make food? Light, which is energy, yes. But chemosynthesis does something else. Instead of using the photo for light, they're using chemo, C-H-E-M-O. Yeah, finish that up, Brady, you're correct. There you go, chemicals. So, chemicals used to produce these sugars, and what is supposed to go in there? Oh, as an example, the bacteria at hydrothermal vents that we were talking about. So productivity is producing food through either using light or chemicals, so therefore productivity depends on the amount of what two things? Yeah. Light, sunlight, and chemicals. Yeah, there we go. There's the bioluminescent organisms. Okay, now go to the next slide. The distance from the shore. But let's just talk about the two zones based on light. Either it gets light or it doesn't. So there's the photic zone and the aphotic zone. The photic zone sounds like photo. The photic zone is the upper part of the ocean that gets what? Yep. Zone where there is sunlight, what particular process can occur that produces food? Good. So photosynthesis, that should be one word. And then what is that process called? And we talked about this last time and the time before, but that process that brings the nutrients back up to the surface? Very good. So in this zone, upwelling is necessary to replenish the nutrients that get used up for photosynthesis. And many marine organisms are found here. Most of the life in the ocean lives in that photic zone and or travels in and out of it on a regular basis. What then is the aphotic zone? If the photic zone has light, the aphotic zone, exactly, no light. Aphotic zone, since we can't do photosynthesis, what process does happen down there that produces food? Well, what was the other one? Look to the previous slide. There was photosynthesis or? You guys are so quiet sometimes. Yes, chemosynthetic organisms. So in this aphotic zone, there are organisms adapted to do chemosynthesis and some that are bioluminescent. What is it that an organism can do if it is bioluminescent? Yeah, they light up. If you look at the next slide, there's pictures of some of those. Up here at the top, where it's fairly flat, these two red arrows, they're pointing at that flat part coming out from the shoreline. What do we call that? So that's the shelf. Then how about this part that gets deep pretty quickly?
So,
Yeah, that's the slope. Very good, Luke. Would be this part here in light green. It's flat and it's way down there on the deep part. Yeah, good, abyssal plain. Okay, now there's a couple other things I think you guys can figure out as well. How about this pink arrow that's extending through the whole thing on the bottom? Well, what kind of organisms dwell on the bottom? The one that starts with a B, anyone remember it?
Benthos.
Yes, the benthos. So this is called the benthic zone.
That's awesome.
That was fun.
Okay, there are a few more things on here I think you guys would know. How about this short little red arrow section that looks lighter because it gets light? What do we call that area?
Sun.
Good. Now it's not the sun itself, but the photic zone. And underneath that, that's not getting light, what do we call that? Yes, the aphotic zone.
How deep is the photic zone?
Zone over here on the side in yellow is open ocean of any depth, and that's called the pelagic zone. P-L-A-G-I-C.
C-O-N-E.
See if I can redo those last two letters so you can see it. So that's, anyway, the pelagic zone. And what then do we call all these animals that swim around in the pelagic zone? What do we call the swimmers? Sorry, what? It's the one that starts with an N? Yeah. Nectin. All right, then the last two things on here. This little orange arrow, that we're not really going to bother to put anything on that, but it's called the limit of light penetration, so the depth at which light can't penetrate any farther past that. And these two things up top, it's zoomed in on the wee little buggers that just drift around. What do we call the drifters? The official name? We're getting closer. Yeah, there it is, plankton. The last thing for in here is just that I want you guys to notice this diagram at the bottom. These are the zones of the ocean in more detail. Basically, it's taking the pelagic zone and breaking it into subsections. So this open ocean of any depth altogether is pelagic zone, but then they break it up into the stuff on the surface. So epipelagic, just below that. Mesopelagic, after that, is the deep stuff, bathypelagic. Abyssal pelagic, they're really deep, and then the hadopelagic, the ridiculously, insanely deep, and so forth. Then we can do the same thing with the benthic areas, like abyssal benthic would be in here, bathal benthic and such like that, around there and whatnot. It also gives you some information about the depths of the different lights. But here's the deal. You're going to use this particular diagram to do your next assignment, which is in Canvas, and I want you guys to make sense of that little song that Mr. Ray sings from Finding Nemo.